I don't know why I love doing this every year, but it seems that I really get some sort of fulfillment out of seeing how different my taste is from other people, or how many people disapprove of my taste. So, I want to share with you my favorite albums of this year. And this year has been such a great year for music that I could not pick just 50 albums. I wanted to expand it to 75. So these are my top 75 albums of 2017. And even then, I have 10 honorable mentions that I'd like to flash up on the screen for you. So without further ado, I'll try to get through this as quickly as I can, but I still want to talk, so here we go. Blue Iverson's Hotep. The drums with Abysmal Thoughts. Ibibio Sound Machine with Ouye. The long-awaited debut from Poppy.Computer. Power Trip with Nightmare Logic. Uncommon NASA's Written at Night. Lord's Melodrama. Matt Martian's The Drum Chord Theory. Dream Catalog's Computer Graphics with Lo-Fi. The ever-so-eccentric Richard Dawson with Peasant. Stromboli with Volume Uno. Rina Sawayama with the self-titled Rina EP. Megabog's Happy Together. Moon Diagrams with Lifetime of Love. Deerhoof's best album in years, Mountain Moves. Yes, of course this is not their best by a long shot, but compared to a lot of indie dance that you hear nowadays, it's very obviously a cut above. The brilliant Russian analog synth tinkerer XYR with his new record Labyrinth. DJ Seinfeld's Time Spent Away from You. Beach Fossils with Somersault. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard's Flying Microtonal Banana. L'Oreal Halo with Dust. Monster Alley Never Gets Old with Flowering Jungle. Rostam continues Vampire Weekend's legacy with Half-Light. I also loved AceMo's dark lo-fi techno with Black Populous. And of course, Damn was pretty good as well. Godspeed You Black Emperor never disappoint me, this time is no different with Luciferian Towers. Washed Out really surprised me with the very groovy Mr. Mellow. And the first of 3 on this list, the powerhouse boy band Brockhampton with Saturation 2. I also loved a record that came out very, very early in this year, but I really dug it and it stuck with me. Teen Days' Themes for Dying Earth. A special hidden Bandcamp gem, the French Oiseau Tempête with Al An, and Your Night is Your Shadow / a fairy tale piece of land to make our dreams. The record Untitled 91 from an artist whose name I really can't pronounce, Hector Gahan. Mallsoft is not dead thanks to GlenOAX's Narvon Nights. What I thought was the better of 2 records released this year from the OCs, Memory of a Cut-Off Head. The fantastic short punk opus from Sneaks, It's a Myth. The incredibly whacked out and freaky Cabo Boing's Blob on a Grid. The sweet 60s charm of Tennis's Yours Conditionally. Jay-Z was a rapper I previously didn't really care about, but 444 really hit me. Ariel Pink played it more subtly this year with Dedicated to Bobby Jameson, and I dare you to find a more left-field, mesmerizing space opera than Planetarium. Quelle Chris's deep, dank world of introspection really comes to life on Being You is Great. I wish I could be you more often. And my number 35 is one of the very early knocks out of the park from this year, Home Shake's Fresh Air. And at 34 is King Gizzard again with my favorite of the 4 albums they released this year, Sketches of Brunswick East, featuring Mild High Club. And my 33 spot is one of the most inescapable but also undeniable records of this year, SZA's Control. And at 32, this album really floored me with its ambient lap steel guitar, Chuck Johnson with Balsams. And at 31, this band is just so solid and consistent with every release that even their B-sides are worth mentioning, Beach House's B-sides and Rarities. Number 30 might have been my summer pop record of the year, Torori Moi's Boo Boo. And at 29, one of my favorite artists of the decade took a much subtler acoustic approach, Mac DeMarco with This Old Dog. Number 28 is dense and long and kind of difficult to decipher, but Björk really just floors me every time, this time with Utopia. 27 is my metal record of the year, slow, brooding, and animalistic Primitive Man with Caustic. And following along similar lines, number 26 is probably the best noise album I've heard in several years, Prurient with Rainbow Mirror. At number 25, this album came out like a few weeks ago, but it just hit me so hard that I just really need to put it here. Brockhampton with Saturation 3. Number 24 was an electronic album, but felt more like an indie rock album of sorts. Mount Kimby with Love What Survives. And at number 23, another artist who released a lot this year and whose B-sides cannot go unmentioned, Sufjan Stevens' The Greatest Gift mixtape. 22 is a really unique blend of drone, krautrock, and a little bit of sound collage, Bitchin Bajas with Bajas Fresh. Number 21 is another noise album that is punchy, rugged, and really inhuman. Aaron Dilloway from Wolf Eyes with The Gag File. Number 20 comes from an artist that I really didn't think needed my attention, but this album, Pleasure, really impressed me from Feist. Number 19 is incredibly dark and scary, but also beautiful and awe-inspiring. The new self-titled Arca album. Number 18, another one that came out very late this year, but as a spiritual sequel to one of my favorite vaporwave albums of the past few years, Esprit Cousteau, or Esprit Fantasy by George Clanton with 200% electronica is just bliss. 17 is one of the wordiest albums of this year, also one of the longest in my list, but I couldn't really get away from it. It just feels like he had so much to say that I really wanted to hear. Sun Kill Moon with Common as Light and Love Are Red Valleys of Blood. And number 16, for the third time, this band is just a shining example of what the boy band could mean in the coming years, and this is the best out of the three in my opinion, Brockhampton with Saturation. Number 15 is a hip-hop album that's more relaxed and cerebral, and I really enjoyed everything from the wordplay to the very subtle instrumentals. Milo with Who Told You to Think. Number 14 comes from an artist who I've really become crazy about the past year, her and her previous band. And I don't know if this album is as good as her debut. They're both very good and very different, but this one's just more bombastic, exciting, visceral. Fever Ray really outdid herself this year with Plunge. And 13, one of the most beautiful pop records this year from an artist I didn't previously enjoy that much, but this just really stuck out to me. It just really hit me like fireworks. Perfume Genius with his flamboyant, effervescent, eccentric art pop record, No Shape. Number 12 is underrated in my opinion, and this record I think stands toe-to-toe with this band's two previous flawless albums. Crack Up is really a fantastic folk odyssey from Fleet Foxes. Number 11 was one of those albums that I really wanted to tell everyone about this year, mostly because it really kind of went under the radar because it was only a free release on Bandcamp, released to little fanfare, but this guy has a project called The Caretaker that I'm really in love with, but under his own name, Leland Kirby has crafted some of the most soft, subtle, but beautiful and emotionally moving ambient works for me this year with the album We, So Tired of All the Darkness in Our Lives. Number 10 is what I think may be the most underrated album of this year and really climbed my list over the course of the entire year. Just every time I listened to it, I loved it even more. This album is rich with stories and characters and descriptions. This guy's always been incredible with telling stories through his music. And on this one, I really think he hit the nail right on the head when covering an entire subject with one album. The Mountain Goats with Goths, really, honestly, amazing for me for some reason. I don't know, like, I've never, like, been huge into the Mountain Goats before, but this one just really hit me specifically. Number 9 is really, I think, better than people give it credit for. A lot of bands in this style kind of made a comeback in the past few years, but I think this is the best out of the bunch. Slowdive, self-titled Slowdive, I think is probably one of their best in their discography, and really just a landmark dream pop and shoegaze album that I will be returning to for the foreseeable future for a long time. Number 8 comes from one of the few bands that I saw live this year and just really have been in love with since their debut a couple of years ago. It really took me a while to recognize how good I really think this album is, but now that I have put this list together and really thought about it and listened to it a lot, I really think that Alvvays have improved on all fronts with their new album Antisocialites. It's just it's a cut above all of the pop rock and jangle pop that everyone is hearing this year. I think this is one of the best pop albums of the past few years. Number 7 is from an artist that I've known of in the past, and his previous album is one of my favorites of all time. But with this one, I think he has kind of created something entirely different in his approach to techno and electronic production, and this is just really meditative, hypnotic, dark, and nocturnal. Actress with Acid is really just one of the best electronic albums I've heard this year. And at number 6, what a exciting sigh of relief that this gave me. And this is an artist I've been following for a very long time. I know a lot of people have, and this one was just the album that just made us like so excited, because for me he's come so close to just coming out with a fantastic record from front to back, and this one I really think he did it, and it's been a long time coming, but I'm really excited to see that he's finally getting the attention that he deserves with Flower Boy Tyler, the Creator, has really outdone himself with what I think is the best hip-hop album of 2017. Number 5 is an album that I had at my number 1 spot for a very long time because I thought that because of how emotionally it affects me and everyone who listened to it, I really think it should be completely, like, separate. Like, it may not be the most enjoyable album of this year, but I think it's the most important because of how it really made us think of, like, entertainment in this age, because this is very obviously music, but what he's talking about is so just heart-wrenching and emotionally stirring that this just really needs to be in its own category entirely. But I still think it deserved a place on this list because it's really important to me and significant, and it resonated with a lot of people that I know, of course. And this artist I've just really fallen in love with this year. I really deep dove into his discography this past year, and really just the stuff he makes is so unique and important, and that is probably no truer than on his latest album, A Crow Looked at Me from Mount Erie. This is just a really special record that is very hard to listen to, but because of that, I think it's just so much more important and sets it apart from all other albums, pretty much, in my opinion. Number 4 is another album that really climbed up my list the more I listened to it. Big Thief really surprised me with Capacity. Adrian Lenker in this band has such an incredible voice and ear for songwriting, and hooks that just stick in my head, but at the same time lyrics that really cut for me. Number 3 is an album that I will be telling people about for a very long time. It's my favorite ambient album of the year, my favorite electronic album of the year. These guys really made a sound that sounds both ancient and far into the future. Really a sound that I can't really describe, so much so that it really sounds like it is incredibly progressive and pushing forward. It's Visible Cloaks with Reassemblage. Just an incredible and kaleidoscopic, colorful, vibrant record that just really hit me the first time I heard it. Number 2 will probably not be that much of a surprise to anyone, but Sandy Alex G's Rocket is just one that hit me really hard, and these guys' sounds are very familiar to our ears, pretty much. I mean, it's basically just acoustic, folk, indie rock kind of stuff, but I just really think the way he assembles these sounds are just so unique and genius. Like, the way he makes this album seamlessly flow, every track cascading over another, is just beautiful and touching, and it just feels like something I wish I had the power to make as far as songwriting goes and just composition. And this is my favorite album from this guy, and really helped me really fall in love with his work this year. I think this is just one of my favorites of the year. And my number 1 album of the year, my favorite album of 2017, is an album that just spoke to me in so many different ways. The lyrics are emotionally resonant and really just touched me, but at the same time, the sound of this album blends so many different styles together that it just sounds so of another world. And I feel like this album is really what I needed to hear, in that it can be enjoyed in any context in my life, and can be enjoyed free of context, because this year has been a really crazy one in terms of society, politics, all that kind of stuff. Like, the world is a very volatile, unpredictable place to live in, especially this year, but this album is just really an incredible escape for me, and just something that every time I put it on, it pulls me into its world. And I think that even though it sounds kind of nonchalant and kind of off the cuff and just kind of carefree, at the same time, the more I dove into this record, it seems like every single moment on this album is incredibly precisely crafted and placed with an ear for everything else that's going on. I think it's just a flawless record from front to back, and I think every moment is as essential as another, and I just think it all culminates into something that just really I will be able to put on just any time and just have me escape this world and be pulled into its own world, from an artist who I have loved his past work, but this one really just stuck with me like nothing else, and will continue to stick with me as one of my favorites albums of all time, probably. King Cruel with the Ooze. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed my list. I really think this was the year of prolificacy. I mean, King Gizzard released 4 albums, Brockhampton 3, The OCs 2, Me 3, if you haven't checked those out. There's just so much this year that I had to talk about as much as possible. So, till next time.